If we can all take our seats.
Oh, who sat here last? Yikes.
Mr. Yutzi, if we can all take our seats, that'd be great. Don't mean to pick on you. Good morning. It's approximately just a minute or so after 9:30. Today is May 10th, Tuesday. This is the Board of County Commissioners meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. To do the invocation, we have Bishop Ronald Johnson of the Seventh-day Church in Goldenrod, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Commissioner Zimbauer. Can we all stand, sir? Pastor?
Let us bow our heads, please. Father, we thank you for this opportunity that you afforded us to come before you, Lord. First of all, we want to thank you for bringing us through last night's lying down and allowing us to open our eyes to a beautiful new day. Lord, as we gather our thoughts, we gather our minds, allow us to do it peaceably, Lord, but please lend us your knowledge, your wisdom, but most of all, your understanding. So at the end of this day, as we go back through these doors, we will say it was good that we've been here. And Lord, because this is our prayer of faith, we claim that victory and thank you for it. Lord, these and all blessings we ask in the name of our Savior, and all of God's people say amen, amen, and amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. If you'd please join me in remembrance that the reason we're able to recite this pledge is the men and women that make this all possible for this country and this great county. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bishop Johnson, thank you very much. Commissioner, thank you for leading us in the pledge.
Thank you,
Great
sir.
prayer, Bishop.
Before we go into proclamation, awards, and presentations, we have a couple of guests here. Since Commissioner Lockhart was on the school board, Commissioner Lockhart, would you like to introduce some of our guests?
I would be happy to. I would be honored to, absolutely. From the school board today, we're going to be honoring our Teacher of the Year, and so some wonderful folks from the school board are here. I'd like to recognize our fellow elected officials, Chairman of the school board, Amy Pennock, Karen Almond, school board member, Abby Sanchez, school board member, Christine Kraus, school board member, and Dr. Tina Calderon. And there you are, Tina. I saw you. And, and Superintendent Sarita Beeman. And I know there are so many others here from the board to support our Teacher of the Year, and we'll be recognizing her in a bit.
Thank you, Commissioner.
May I also say former County Commissioner and Chairman Darrell McLean is with us this morning.
I was going to go there, but thank you for doing
I'm sorry.
that. That's all right. Thank you, Darrell, for being here, Commissioner. We're next going to go into proclamation, awards, and presentation. The first one is the business spotlight. We hear from staff, please.
My name is Steve Walters. I'm the president and COO of Hoverfly Technologies. Hoverfly designs and manufactures tethered drones. We've been around since 2010. Initially, from about 2010 to 2015, Hoverfly built flight control boards. And then around 2015, 2016, I joined the company in 2016, is when we switched to kind of changed our business model to tethered drones. And then we focused almost solely on tethered drones again. Tethered drones is a very unique space. It's a niche market. It's unique because most quadcopters fly for about 20-30 minutes, and our system can stay up for hours and days. And there's great applications for that, and it's a little counterintuitive. People wonder why you would tether a drone, a free-flying system, but when you can stay up for days, there's a lot you can do with that. You put a network payload on it, you can run a 5G payload, and now you have broadband capability at 200 feet. Or you put a really capable camera payload on there, day camera or IR camera, and there's a lot you could do with that, with the military, with law enforcement, public safety. and just overwatching important events. This company is unique in a lot of different ways. It's a really high-performing company. We're small, but we've grown tremendously. When I got to the company in 2016, and I was, I think, employee number 10 or 11, we now have over 60 employees, and we're growing, continue to grow at a rapid pace, probably double in the next year or two. So we have electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and software engineers. We have very high-level electronic techs. They're the folks who, do the R&D work, who build everything, work on it on these little tiny printed circuit boards, and they're fantastic. And we're always going to need people like that. We fly every day. We have to flight test our system. When it comes off the production line, we have to do production verification flights. I see the company continuing to grow, like I said, probably doubling in another 1 to 2 years. We're in the city of Sanford, and Sanford is a great place. Seminole County is a great place. Just the overall, low taxes, the environment is great. There's so much to do in the county and in the city of Sanford. So we've really enjoyed just the few months we've been here. Really enjoyed being here.
Good morning. For the record, Esteban Saldarriaga, Business Marketing Manager for Seminole County Economic Development. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Alfred Ducharme, Chief Technology Officer, and Mr. Daniel Burrows, Chief Information Officer and Chief Software Architect with Hoverfly.
Hi there. Thanks for having us down. I don't know that there's too much that I can say beyond what Steve said in the video, but Al and I started this company in the UCF Business Incubator over in Winter Springs about 12 years ago, and since then we've kind of bounced around a couple places, including the Celery Cooler over in Oviedo, and more recently the Research Park by UCF, where we both came from, and we've drawn on that wonderful resource to build up our staff over these years. And recently we grew and needed some more space, and we just found this great location out in the city of Sanford, and we're happy to be here out in Seminole County once again, and are just looking forward to this great growth that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, Dan and I both, we were old friends when we started the company 12 years ago. We've been in Orange County. We both live in Seminole County, and we're really happy to move to Seminole County just about 2 months ago. So we had a lot of you at the ribbon cutting, and that was a great event. But we're here to answer your questions. If you have any things specifically, we can say.
So first, I'd like to say, instead of saying old friends, we're longtime friends.
Thank you.
Just a little idiosyncrasy. The older I get, the longer I like to say we're longtime friends. But it's a pleasure to have you here in front of us. It's also nice to see a product of the UCF incubator. Sometimes people question, why do we have an incubator? And you're a perfect example. You're the poster child. And there's many other poster children out there regarding that, because you take a thought, you take an idea, you take something that may need some help and some growth, and you have now a company like you have here today, and that employ so many people that I think it's a true glove in hand fit. So I'm glad to see you back in Seminole. I'm glad to see that you're at Sanford, and I was at your opening, and to see your facilities, I highly recommend people other than the board here to knock on your door, because you truly are cutting-edge technology, and some of the things that you're doing, we're very proud to have you here in Seminole County, so welcome.
Thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Herr?
As the District 5 Commissioner for Sanford, I just want to say welcome home, gentlemen. It's been a tour of Central Florida, and we are glad you're back here. If there's anything we can do to help you stay here, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great technology. We use it in accident reconstruction with LiDAR to memorialize traffic intersections, crash scenes, and so forth. It has really helped the industry move the carbon models, which are us, out of that way of the traffic and so forth. So it's a great technology, and hopefully you can use this presentation for the betterment of your business to promote it. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
I'm now going to go into resolutions and proclamations. The first resolution will be presented by Commissioner Lockhart. Commissioner?
All right. Commissioners, I'd like to move the following resolution of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners recognizing Julie Gabrovic, Seminole County Public Schools 2023 Teacher of the Year. Whereas the Florida Teacher of the Year program began in 1967 to honor outstanding classroom teachers, and whereas Florida District Teachers of the Year are recognized as subject matter experts who have demonstrated a superior capacity to guide students of all backgrounds and abilities to academic excellence. And whereas the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners joined Seminole County Public Schools in its acknowledgement of the important role that teachers play in the quality of life for students and residents of Seminole County. And whereas Julie Gabrovic has been responsible for shaping the minds of children for 33 years, ensuring that all of her students receive a well-rounded education. And whereas Julie Gabrovic fills many roles as a listener, mentor, and motivator among students and staff. And whereas over the years, Julie Gabrovic has been recognized as an outstanding educator, receiving several awards and commendations, including the Walt Disney World Innovative Classroom Award, the Walt Disney World Teacherific Award, the PRISM Project's Outstanding Elementary Science Teacher of the Year for Seminole County. And whereas over the course of her career, Julie Gabrovic has been awarded Teacher of the Year for Shenandoah Elementary, Rosemont Elementary, and Wekiva Elementary School. And whereas Julie Gabrovic is dedicated to the advancement of students' knowledge and science and has served as the creator and coordinator of the Super Scientist program at Wekiva Elementary since 2007, in addition to serving as the creator and organizer for Wekiva Elementary School's annual Science Expo since 2008. And whereas Julie Gabrovic has been a mentor for both the pre-service and alternative route educators for NASA's Endeavor Science Teaching Certificate program since 2011. And whereas Julie Gabrovic has helped her fifth grade students successfully achieve outstanding skills in science on the annual Florida Standards Assessment, as evidenced by Wekiva Elementary's top rankings under her tutelage. And whereas on Friday, February 4th, 2022, Julie Gabrovic was named Seminole County Public Schools 2023 Teacher of the Year. And whereas Julie Gabrovic will now compete in Florida's Teacher of the Year program, which culminates in a summer awards program where the state's top teacher is announced. Now therefore be it resolved that the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners does hereby recognize Julie Gabrovic as the Seminole County Public Schools Teacher of the Year 2023 and honors her for her dedication to the students of Wekiva Elementary School, adopted this 10th day of May, 2022.
Second.
The motion, second discussion. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passed. Commissioner, would you present it?
Absolutely. Would you like to all come down from the school board and so we can take a group picture together? And then also, Keaton Schreiner is here, and he was my kid's assistant principal at Idlewild Elementary many, many years ago. Longtime friends. And there's also one of Ms. Gabrovic's students is here today to help recognize and honor her, and so we'd like her to come down too. Is that okay? All right.
Don't be shy about getting the picture. You know how you make that.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, just give us a minute, and then
Oh, sorry.
you'll have the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I said, what a great way to start my day today. It's an extreme honor to be recognized here today at the Seminole County Board of Commissioners meeting. I'm so proud to represent the many amazing, dedicated, and talented teachers of Seminole County. And I'm proud to say that my family has deep roots here. My husband, Matt, and 3 amazing daughters, Grace, Amelia, and Lucy, are all products of Seminole County Public Schools. My in-laws, known to everyone as Grandma and Grandpa Gab, are still working for and volunteering at SCPS at ages, believe it or not, 79 and 88. The most exciting news of all is that sorry, I get so nervous, is that my eldest daughter just began her career as a teacher of world history and ROTC this year right here in Seminole County at Indian Trails Middle School. Yay, yay, yay. Thanks to you for your continued support of our schools and families in Seminole County. Thanks also to our superintendent, Mrs. Beeman, and our school board members who tirelessly work to make our schools the best in the state. And a special thanks to my principal, Keith Schreiner, for coming out this morning to support me during a very, very busy testing week. I'm sure our AP, Dr. Lester, has everything under control. I'm looking forward to this coming school year where I will get to celebrate being a teacher in the best district in the state.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next proclamation will be presented by Commissioner Zimbauer. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my honor to enter this proclamation on behalf of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners, proclaiming May 15th through 21st, 2022 as Emergency Medical Services Week in Seminole County. Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical service has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-the-hospital care by the emergency medical service systems consisting of first responders, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, doctors, nurses, administrators, and members of the public. And whereas the members of emergency medical services team engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas it's appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners that the week of May 15th through 21st, 2022 as Emergency Medical Services Week with the EMS strong theme, Rising to the Challenge, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism provide emergency medical services to our citizens and visitors. Adopted as 10th day, May 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion
And
passes.
If
Commissioner, would you
our
present?
firefighters would come down, our first responders, please.
Ready, 1, 2.
Chief, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Matt Kinley, Seminole County Fire Chief. Just want to thank you for the proclamation. It really hits the nail on the head that this isn't just about firefighter, EMTs, and paramedics. It's really about a system. The citizens demand it. You fund it. We implement a plan. But it's that chain of survival. It is a typical 911 call. You have somebody that goes down. A citizen has to recognize that there's a medical problem. They call 911, activate that system. The 911 operator works them through that call and, say, for a cardiac arrest, talks them through doing CPR. Hands-only CPR is proven to save lives, and that's the citizen that's on scene that's doing that. We show up, do the great things that we can do with all our emergency medical services, advanced life support that we do, and we have hospitals everywhere within this county and in the Central Florida area. Yeah, you throw a rock, you hit an ER, which reduces our response times. Reduces our turnover times. And we have just the fantastic nurses and doctors within the community that get those patients and get them back home and living a full, productive life. Again, just would like to thank you and thank the men and women of the Seminole County Fire Department.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you. I would like to remind the public, we have a system here called Pulse Point here in the county to follow up with the chief's CPR, that you can download the app on your phone at www.pulsepoint.org, and you'll immediately get instant response on performing CPR, as well as getting directions to the nearest and closest defibrillator AED, and instructions how to operate that. That's a big plus we have here in the county, and thank you all to the fire department for heading that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next proclamation will be presented by Commissioner Herr. Commissioner?
Yes, Commissioners, I move the following proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming May 2022 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Seminole County, Florida. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas 1 in 5 United States adults live with a mental illness, and whereas all Americans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively affected the overall mental health of people in the United States, and whereas suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34 in the U.S., and whereas 90% of people who died by suicide had previously shown symptoms of a mental health condition. And whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental illness, and whereas with effective treatment, those individuals with mental illness can recover and do lead full, productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider organization, and citizen shares the burden of mental illness and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and prevention efforts. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners does hereby proclaim May 2022 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Seminole County, and calls upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, and schools in Seminole County to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental health, the steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health, and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental illness at all stages.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Commissioner, would you present it?
Yes, and we do have Jolenta Jackie from Penn Tech and Shannon Campbell from Allie's Hope Foundation here to accept.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Can you have a guest with you?
Yes, I have some guests with us today, the Lake Mary High School Student Wellness Task Force. We have some representatives from that. And we have a couple of board members who are here with us today, and our staff, our whopping big 3-person staff. Joe's not here today, but Sarah is our program director at Allie's Hope Foundation. And these are our students, some of our students from Lake Mary High School.
Go Rams.
Yeah, there we go.
You guys all in?
Thank you, everyone.
Floor is
I will
yours.
try to read this without my glasses on, so please forgive me. Commissioners, thank you very much for this proclamation recognizing the increase in mental health struggles in our community as well as others, who our community and well as others are dealing with at this time every day. I could give you all the statistics about how the number of suicides among our adolescents and teens has risen since 2019. We've seen this in our own community. However, we also could talk about how students are struggling to do their schoolwork as they feel the end of the world is upon them just by watching the news or looking around, seeing prices go out of sight. There's a lot of new things in this world. Students are feeling a lot as though adults aren't listening. And when Allie's Hope Foundation walked into Lake Mary High School, things hopefully have changed for those students. Since November 2021, Allie's Hope Foundation has been working in the Seminole County high schools to assist students in creating a peer-to-peer messaging about mental wellness, coping skills, and available resources. Who's better at getting a message across to teens than other teens? Take a look at the Lake Mary High School students who are here with us today. These are the foundation. They are the foundation, the pioneers of the first and only program in Central Florida where we, Allie's Hope Foundation, are working directly with the students, the principal, and counselors at Lake Mary High School, along with the Seminole County Public School System, to create messaging content through podcasts. I would like to extend our deepest gratitude and thanks to the Seminole County Public Schools Superintendent, to our entire school system, to Dr. Reynolds, the principal of Lake Mary High School, Ms. Compton, who is the social worker at Lake Mary High School, Mr. Langston, who is the technology and library manager. He's helped us put all the podcasts together. He's been the producer. And most importantly, the students that are here with us today. They have been such a special part of lighting this path for us. They are committed to being a part of enlightening and encouraging mental wellness within their peers. Together, we'll carry this message and expand this programs to students throughout Seminole County and throughout the Central Florida area. So thank you very much for presenting this to Allie's Hope Foundation. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioners, before we go on to the next item, which is the legislative update, I would like to give a special shout out to one of our county employees in growth management, Annie Stillway. She just received her Master's of Science in Urban and Regional Planning from UCF. She walked across the stage about a week or so ago, and it's not every day that you can actually get a full-time county employee to put the effort. Now, they do put a lot of effort in, but to actually get a master's degree is a huge accomplishment, and I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work that Annie's been doing, not just as a county employee, but to get that degree. So thank you, Annie, for all your hard work. Good stuff. Now we'll move on to the legislative update.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, Tricia Johnson, Deputy County Manager. Every year, we have the opportunity to hear from our government affairs representatives about all the exciting developments during legislative session. Unfortunately, Ron Book could not join us today, so my other partner in crime from Tallahassee, Oscar Anderson with Southern Group, will be providing a recap of the 2022 session and may provide a little bit of a preview for 2023. Thank you. Oscar?
Thank you. Morning.
Morning.
I have to put on my glasses, unlike the other lady, I'm too old. So I'm just going to, please interrupt if you have questions as I go along, because I know things will jog your mind. So as typical, there's 3,500 bills roughly introduced this year. They always pass a very small amount, it's a winnowing down process. The total number was 285. The budget they passed this year was significantly increased over last year. It's like 10%. It's $112 billion. Now, the governor hasn't acted on that yet, and we've heard everything from $500 million to $2 billion in vetoes, and who knows? We won't hear about that until after the special session. But it was a big budget from the legislative perspective. A few highlights, and this is. We generally have it divided where Ron Book does sort of appropriations and budget work and I do policy stuff, but since Ron's not here, I'm going to try to hit some of the budget highlights and give a little insight into that. There was a lot of money in environment. If you remember last session, they created a $500 million resiliency fund. They doubled down and basically did that again. So now it's about $1 billion over 2 years, which is a lot of money. And there were some other particular pieces in here that I thought might be of interest. The septic to sewer was really the wastewater grant program, but can be used for that purpose. They put $125 million in that. The wastewater treatment revolving loan fund they added money to, as well as drinking water. Also on the land conservation front, if you remember last session, they put about $400 million into Florida Forever for priority of the wildlife corridor, but a bunch of different purposes, and now they put another $400 million in this year, 100 in Florida Forever and 300 in rural family lands, so that's good. In the world of broadband and cybersecurity, they funded a $400 million broadband program. There were several bills that were filed to sort of implement it, which didn't pass, but the money's in the budget. So I assume it'll just be a program run through DEO under their current authority. And there was quite a bit on the cybersecurity front, and so they've actually put some money in there to help local governments who have some requirements now on the cybersecurity front, which was great to see. In social services, affordable housing is a challenge here in Central Florida. They fully funded, they funded the amount that they had created last year, which was roughly $356 million. What was interesting is, so they fully funded SHIP, which is the allocation that goes to local governments for their efforts. The SAIL program, which is the production program that actually builds new units, they took $100 million out of the $153 million and created a new Hometown Heroes program, which was a bill that Senator Hooper had filed that didn't get passed, but they're going to let Florida Housing create the program. And it will kind of run like SHIP, so it's really it's like an extension of SHIP. It'll just be run out of Tallahassee. It'll be soft second loans, down payment assistance, that sort of stuff. But from what I understand, there's a lot of sale money coming back in the system from other loans that had come due, so there still should be plenty of money in there from a production perspective. Mental health services, we just heard $1.1 billion in that in the ACA budget. Two quick notes. Visit Florida got $50 million. It's been sort of a constant fight in Tallahassee to get the funding now, but they seem to be in a better footing. In the Job Growth Grant Fund, we put another $50 million in that, which is the pot of money that local governments and projects can apply for. So those people over there can probably tell you more about it than I can, both of those. There were a few specific Seminole County appropriations requests that were funded in this year's budget. Little Wekiva ongoing maintenance, $500,000 from last year. The E. Williamson Road Trail connection for $1 million, and the Wekiva Springs Road intersection improvements. Again, the governor hasn't even received the budget. We don't expect him to get it till after special session, so we'll just stay on top of that. We've answered the questions from OPB and on those projects, so we'll keep our fingers crossed on that and do what we need to make sure they have all the information. On to policy, home rule is the big issue when it comes to local governments, and there were, as has been the case of late, quite a lot of bills in the home rule space. The biggest one, which hasn't been acted on, is the Senate Bill 620, which is the Business Protection Act, the Business Damages Act, which basically creates a cause of action if a local government does something that impacts a business with more than 15% of their income. The counties and the cities, the counties mostly worked really hard to create some rationality to that, so that if you're a new business coming in, you haven't created doesn't become like a protectionist scheme sort of a thing by local governments to keep new businesses out. And so there was some rationality put to it. It's still pretty onerous. We don't really know how it's going to play out. We expect there'll be lots of lawsuits, and it'll have to be figured out. Even to like how those damages are going to be applied, we think it'll be sort of handled like an eminent domain sort of a case. We're not really even sure that. None of those parameters were put in the legislation. So the governor has yet to act on it. As I said, there's been a lot of conversation about it here the last few weeks. We'll see if he moves on it before the May 23rd special session or not. House Bill 3 was a law enforcement bill. It was used to help actually bring in and retain law enforcement, which became a problem during COVID. It was supposed to be sort of an incentive to help law enforcement. At the end of the process, there was some language put in there that basically gave the sheriff the ability to move money around without having to come back to this board with funding. It was a deal that was cut out of Tampa and the sheriff over there and the speaker, and so it was not really. We tried. We had some amendments filed, but failed. Became a thing they were trading for at the end of the session. So we'll see how that works. In the past, if you put $50 or $100 million in the sheriff's budget to do jail upgrades, they sort of had to stay within that sort of parameter. Now, sheriff can kind of move that money and buy cars with it or do whatever they want to with it. So it probably will change the way you think about that sheriff's budget. A couple other bills. Vacation rental bill did not pass this year. I do anticipate with Senator Pasadomo coming in, she's sort of taken on, she wants to solve this problem. She's a real estate lawyer from Naples. We think it'll probably get resolved next year. It's getting a little bit better. Every year it kind of gets a little better, but it's still not great. There was a pet protection bill that was filed that didn't pass that would have made it illegal for local governments to prohibit pet sales. You guys have done that for a while, so it doesn't really impact you, but it was, again, another attack on home rule authority. I put the last one on there because it's not an expansion, but it's a confirmation of home rule authority. It actually allows you, at least coastal communities, to regulate smoking on beaches, which hasn't happened except for cigars, apparently. But everything else can be regulated on beaches. Unfiltered cigars, sorry. But it was a big win for the coastal communities that have a kind of an issue there and an affirmation of home rule. A couple of revenue issues that were passed. One is House Joint Resolution 1, which is the property tax exemption for public sector workforce. That'll be on the ballot in November. It'll require 60% like everything else. Basically adds this property tax exemption for critical workers, and there's sort of a list in the staff analysis. It's going to have to be implemented. We don't know. Like if somebody got hired on December 25th, do they get the full year property? There's a lot of moving parts to that. So the legislature will have to implement that if it does pass, and I assume it will pass just based on the title. And then the other was the tax bill, which passed. It was about $1 billion. There were a few things in there that we were worried about. In particular, the catastrophic event issue, it was not really clear, and we did about everything we could to try to fix that. Still sort of there. We don't really know what a catastrophic event is. Again, something that's going to have to be probably further refined as we go through. And then the other was the gas tax holiday. If you remember, the governor rolled out a 6-month or a year-long gas tax holiday. That was a huge number. Ended up being just 1 month, and it doesn't impact county revenues, which was great because you do get a piece of that. So we did the best we could to mitigate some of those issues. Other issues, obviously, the tax collector budgets issue was a priority for us. Didn't get heard in either chamber at all. It's an election year, probably a smart move at this point to wait to see how these elections work out. And at this point, the two sponsors are, I think, running against each other. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes campaign-wise, election-wise, and if our makeup of our delegation changes, that could impact that. And then the other was the big resiliency office. They finally established it, created the thing, made the state have to do an actual study of it, created the office. And put another $500 million in it. That was a big issue. Other issues in 2022 that were out there, obviously redistricting was a huge priority. It required us to come back for the first of 2 special sessions, at least 2, on the congressional maps. it definitely had as it always does, puts kind of a black cloud over the whole conversation because people are wondering if they're even going to be in their district. And there's been a lot of movement now, people having to file for different districts because of the way the maps changed in the legislature. So, but that looks like that's finally resolved. Obviously, there's still challenges on the congressional map, so we'll see how that works out. I put the culture wars up there because everybody has called this sort of the culture wars session. There was obviously some pretty high level cultural issues that got tackled. I will tell you, I went back and looked because just interesting to me, there were only, I think there were less than 10 bills that passed that did not have bipartisan support. So it feels like it was a more angrier session, but there wasn't a whole lot of bills that went just straight down party line. So just as an interesting side note, when you hear all the culture war stuff. Items not taken up, which we think at least two of them will be in the upcoming session, we think. One was sovereign immunity. That was a big bill. We worked on that a lot. Right now, I think your caps are 200 and 300 on sovereign immunity. It was going to move it to 400 and 600. At one point, it was even like $1 million. There was a compromise at the end in the Senate that sort of created a graduated scale depending on the size of the local government to try to make some rationality to it. I expect we'll see that again. That was a big priority of Senator Pasadomo, just like Senate Bill 620 was. And they both sort of had the same thought process, very different issues, same thought process. The business damages thing was they got tired of having all these little one-off home rule fights up there. So let's just do something across the board that says if a local government impacts businesses, and there's another way to solve the problem without having to come to the legislature to carve it out. And then sort of with sovereign immunity, they get a lot of claims bills every year, and they're trying to reduce the number of claims bills they have to handle. Because if a jury, if a jury agrees to a settlement that's higher than the sovereign immunity cap, you have to go to the legislature to get that funded. So same sort of thought process, obviously different issues. Constitutional carry, there's been a lot about this in the press lately. Don't know if it's going to get added. I think I said on the next slide so far, like what's included in the special session is, at the end of the last one, he threw in Reedy Creek at the end, and a few other issues 2 or 3 days before the actual session, so who knows what'll get added. But we do know they're going to take up property insurance and some at some level, and maybe get into that condominium oversight from the Surfside collapse that happened last year. I put this up here. This is coming up, special session. That's what's in the call. Written in the call is the property insurance and reinsurance, the building code to improve the property insurance issue, which is really the roofing issue, OIR, civil remedies and appropriations. And appropriations could be anything, so we don't really know. That's kind of a big catch-all. We assume it's going to be part of property insurance. We don't really know. Just because I'm sure you all hear about the property insurance issue. My understanding is they're still haven't come to agreement yet. There's a reason why it didn't pass during the regular legislative session. The speaker has held pretty firm that we just passed reform. We don't know if it's really going to work or not. And we're running right up against the hurricane season. So even if you did things like try to fix the reinsurance issue, or you wouldn't actually see it impact anybody's homeowner insurance this year. And so they're like, why are we even having a conversation about that? So it'll be interesting to see. One of the biggest sticking points of that is what they call the one-way attorney's fees issue. And so that's just a classic trial lawyers, property insurers battle, and we'll have to see how that levels out. I put the speaker's comments up here just so you can see. He put this out right after the governor called it, and as you can see, he wants to know whether what we've already done works or not. So that is yet to be determined. Obviously, it's an election year. Everyone's on the ballot. Everyone. So it'll be a busy year. I touched on new leadership. We've got, assuming the Republicans maintain control, which everybody assumes they will. It's still an assumption. We'll have Senator Pasadomo in the Senate, as I said, real estate lawyer from Naples. Always been more of a friend to local government, I guess. So for the last several years, we've had this weird thing where the Senate's been kind of rougher on local governments than the House has been. I think we're going to go back to regular order, where the Senate's the friendly place for local government and the House is not again. Senator Pasadomo has always had a very sympathetic ear because she deals with local governments all the time in her daily work. The incoming speaker is a guy named Paul Renner. He's up from Palm Coast. His office is actually down in Orlando. He spends a lot of time in this neck of the woods. Military guy, conservative guy. I think we'll go back to him being a little more less friendly to government, and then the Senate being the place where we find some friends. Upcoming, obviously, right after the elections, we'll have our organizational session in November for a week. They could do another special session then if they wanted to. It'll be after the elections. They'll all be there. It'll be easier for them to do. They've done that in the past. And then committee weeks will start probably right after the first of the year, and then we'll go into the late session, the March to May session next year. So that's all I have. Questions?
Thank you,
I'm trying to keep
Oscar.
this a link to a proclamation.
It's okay.
so-
Let's see, first,
Good job.
Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you very much. And thank you, Oscar. And you and I do talk from time to time because of the relationship with Florida Association of Counties and such. But
Old friends.
yes,
I'm sorry.
and old friends. And I'm going to bring up one of those things.
Long time friends, sorry.
Long time.
Yes, yes,
We're not old friends. You're not old. I am, but you're not old. Couple of things that I found interesting is that the way, and this is always the case, but the way they identify bills like the or the pet protection, which is really the anti-pet protection. But you called it the pet protection.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, I know what it's called, and I know what it is. But it's interesting at the same time, the reason, and it's been all over the news, so I'm not stating anything that anyone doesn't know, the reason why 620 may be vetoed, the business, is because the governor has a soft spot for local governments that are trying to eliminate puppy mills and the sale of pets, which we did way earlier than most counties. So I love the fact that they're going in different directions on that particular thing. And as you know, we are, very strong from the local perspective on both of those, so we'd like that. The House Bill 3, I think, needs to be mentioned a little bit more because it did take away any rights that local governments have when it comes to the sheriff's budget. And that came on the heels of a unanimous Supreme Court decision, which you didn't bring up, that stated that the local governments, counties, were in the right and the sheriffs were not. Now, I have no problem with our sheriff or anything else, but the problem is that we become responsible for whatever the budget was ever in their budget, but they can take back the money and then move it any place they want to, no matter whether it's capital improvements and capital outlay, all the way to salaries and or reoccurring, more importantly, reoccurring to non-reoccurring and vice versa. And that certainly causes a sustainability problem for local governments. And I think people are going to see that problem. So be looking out, and we're going to be looking out at the Florida Association, but be looking out for ways to modify that, because that is certainly a problem that we have. I did want to say that you said that only 10 bills were cultural wars. Normally in the past, as you know, there's been less than 2 or 3 that were cultural wars up in Tallahassee every year. So I think that's a significant increase from what they had in the past. But most importantly, since you were in DCA when I was writing the building codes bill, this property insurance means a lot to me and a lot to you, I know. The roofs, most of the reason that people are being harmed by the property insurance right now is because they're saying that the roofs are too old, that they have to replace the roofs, even if they get an inspection and they say that the roofs are fine. I, for one, have said that they're not going to renew my property insurance. So I know that that's significant for a lot of folks out there, simply, even though I have a roof inspection that says my roof is fine. So the problem is that the insurance companies were supposed to give, as you know, when the builders put in significant changes with the upgraded type of building requirements, they were supposed to give a discount, just like they are with our Class 1 fire rating. They're supposed to give a discount. But many times that discount gets hidden in increases in the property insurance. So you don't see anything. So that, and certainly, I think one of the things that we might want to look at in the inspections with Surfside is allow local governments to do inspections based upon the location. I think it's very important that you have high-rises being inspected, especially on the coast, but there are times that all local governments should have the ability to put in inspection requirements at the local level, as opposed to single requirement state. Just like the building codes were based on the civil engineers' wind specifications, I think that's, and so different locations had different requirements. I think it would be important that we may look at that. So when you're up there talking about property insurance, you may want to, since you were part of that whole process, you may want to bring that up a little bit. Oscar?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? Commissioner Herr?
I'll just give you a different perspective on the property insurance issue. And while I am an insurance agent, I'm not a property and casualty insurance agent, so there's my disclaimer.
Lucky for you.
But if you look at the trade magazines that we see in the industry, you see Florida standing out for one of the highest rates of insolvency in the country. And so we can keep saying that we want the discount, we want the discount, we want the discount, and we don't want them to cancel us when our roof is 25 years old and we have a full replacement policy. But unless we start to get real about the value of those policies and what they cover, we're going to end up without coverage. And the place of last resort is Citizens, and Citizens is not funded to the degree that it could actually handle it if the wind blew twice, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to be very careful what we're asking for, and it is a high priority. And the fact that we're not going to see a result, immediate gratification on work to be done in that area, it takes years to do that work, and we need to do it now.
Thank you. Commissioner Zimbauer?
All very good points. And I think one of the big things that we're going to have to deal with, or the legislature's going to deal with, is the assignment of benefits issue, which is, these homeowners that a roofing company or somebody that, not really a roofing company, but they are a roofing company, decides that they're going to act on your behalf with your insurance company, and it's in their best interest to get the coverage. And get the roof replaced, whether they do it with their own company or their brother-in-law's company or whoever that might be, which oftentimes leads to litigation, which then, of course, then drives the insurance costs even higher. So I think until they have a real conversation about the assignment of benefits issue, I think that's a big driver with a lot of these increases.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lockhart?
Thank you, Oscar, for your work that you all do for us. We appreciate it. A little different question regarding FRS. I know there were some changes that were recently made regarding the investment plan versus the pension plan and contributions, and do you have any information that you can share with us on that off the tip of your tongue, or you want to get back to me?
No, I'm going to get back to you.
That's awesome. I think of you sometimes as like my hey Google, hey Oscar, and I know that I threw that one at you.
I'm
but
sure I know someone who can get the answer, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
It's come up several times in our budget briefings, and I think it would be helpful for us to really understand from a legislative and political perspective what that means to us, and will it change yet again, potentially?
Okay.
Be helpful. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Oscar, I just want one question. You made a statement a little while ago, and I truly support the gas tax holiday, but you made a comment that it will keep local government harmless, correct?
Yes.
But wouldn't that also affect the district's money that is being spent in
would, for
local?
sure.
So it's not affecting us for the money that's coming directly to the county, but it will affect the money that the state is spending in the county. Is that correct?
Correct.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, that's my understanding, yes, sir.
Because that's not the way I took it, the way you said it.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
That's
Yeah,
all right.
no, yeah, you're right. In my mind, those are very separate pots, but the functional reality is, right, they're working on roads that are in the county, so it all
You
feels like...
know how much it's going to reduce the state's share of...
I don't know what the total number was, but I can get you the details.
If you get that
And I
back
can break
to
it
us.
down by District 5, too.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Actually, I also want to thank you and Ron Book for all the things that you do throughout the entire year in working with our staff. I've heard a lot of great things from our staff regarding yourself and Ron Book, so thank you very much.
Thank you. It's an honor to serve you, so thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the next presentation, which will be the wellness. We'll hear from staff.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Christina Brandolini, Chief Administrator of Human Resources. I am actually joined this morning by Charles Cook with McGriff. I just wanted to kind of high level, we are bringing this to you because the wellness program that you all put in place, it's been 6 years now. It was a 5-year program, and in 2020, we did a timeout because of COVID. So we paused the program, so it was extended for a year. So we're coming back to you now to present some recommendations, some options for how to move forward with the wellness program for the next year and then the outlying years. So I'm going to turn it over to Charles, who will actually walk you through the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Seminole County has a tremendous wellness program that's ahead of a lot of similar entities in the market, and it has produced some great results. If we look here, as Christina mentioned, we're at the end of a 5-year plan that really kind of included the COVID year. So right now, people have to meet certain biometric standards across a range of blood pressure and glucose and cholesterol and so forth, and have lab work with their doctor. And if they meet the biometric standards, then they have a lower payroll deduction. And if they don't, they have the option for what's called a reasonable alternative standard, RAS, to get a form from their provider saying why, or they're excused from it. Essentially, they're on medication or something to that effect. So the challenges have been that, and this is with every organization, there's some negative perception among employees that this is a penalty. It's a stick versus a carrot. And that is just something that lives in every group, when in fact, this is a very positive thing. You are partnering with your employees and saying, if you partner with us, then we will pay X towards your coverage. And if you don't partner with us in this regard, then it is going to cost you more. So you essentially get a discount for participating. You have had great results. So it's positive. It's very positive to have this outcomes-based biometric measure. And even when you have a reasonable alternative standard, that is from a physician. So that means somebody is seeing a physician. And we have a combination of both, in excess of 90% of the employees here meeting this standard. So where are we now? We're in process, we're RFP reviewing the incumbent as well as 3 proposers as alternatives. They will bring different wellness ideas and capabilities into the future. If there is a change, that'll be a change, and any change can be difficult with employees. So in that environment, we were looking at, and my slide order is not always the best, but this is showing you, before I come back to what we're looking at, this is the impact. So if you look on the far right, you have had well below trend as your annualized year-over-year result. We do not see this. When we see employers with wellness programs across the spectrum, they do have an impact on trend. You do have an impact on your future affordability of your plans. This is a really good result. At the bottom, we're showing you how many reasonable alternative standard forms we got. So this is showing a lot of people meet the biometric standards, and then, relatively small number getting the reasonable alternative standard form signed. So, a couple of things. People right now are expecting direction on what do we do for 2023. And there are alternatives. And we've talked about this a lot. You have an excellent wellness full-time employee, Sharon Gam. And we talked about within this environment, okay, we can keep things exactly the same, where you have the biometrics and the reasonable alternative standard, or you could go to an annual physical only standard. So you don't have to meet the biometrics, you don't get a form, but you have to have an annual physical. You have an annual physical, then that puts you in place to, that would be what's called participation-based, and then that is the place where you would get the better payroll deduction. Why did we talk about that? We talked about that because of this negative perception that you're forcing me to do something. We talked about that because of COVID and the disconnect of employees and everyone from their doctor. This is a strong encouragement. That's not my music. Okay.
We're good.
I'm
You
all
were
about.
doing so well.
I'm all about having music, so
Well, you're going to break out into a dance.
get my steps in. I don't have my counter on. So anyway, so we just looked at that as we absolutely want people to reestablish with their primary care physician. If they haven't since COVID, we want them to understand the importance of that versus telehealth. Telehealth through COVID, there have been a couple of silver linings. Telehealth has exploded. That's a great thing. That does not replace your primary care physician. In line with the earlier proclamation, mental health, telehealth has exploded, which is a great thing. So with that, whatever the 2023 brings, we want to add, or we'll recommend adding in 2023, some positive incentives. So that, again, will address some of the negative concerns. We hope to have a platform where you do A, B, C, D, then you get financial incentives, and all carriers have proposed some sort of financial assistance with those incentives. So our recommendation would be and this is a staff recommendation, to amend the current program, keep the payroll deduction incentives, and go to an annual physical with labs on a participation based on everything we've talked about before. And then for 2023, that will be announced, and in 2023, people could begin earning incentives. The baseline to earn the incentives would have been the annual physical. So you had the annual physical, you get your lower payroll deduction for 2023. If you didn't do that, then you can earn points, but you can't achieve them until you have your annual physical in 2023. So you're not precluded if you do not meet that prior to enrollment. So we are coming to you today to ask for your guidance on this program. And so I'll answer questions.
Questions from the board? Commissioner Herr?
If you take us back to slide 3, in the period of time that's represented on the slide, the average trend was 2%. What's the industry?
The industry trend is in the neighborhood of 8.5% to 9.5% now. It varies a little bit with carriers. That's a combination of medical and pharmacy. And so what you're doing is working. One of our goals going forward with any carrier is that we can have some consistency in information to really try to develop a true ROI, but this is a long enough period of time to say it's working.
So 8% versus this. And then if we go to slide 4, I just want, for clarification's sake, just knowing how we hear things. When you mention annual physical, and when it says annual physical only on the slide, do you mean annual physical with the corresponding lab work, or do you really mean annual physical only?
We mean annual physical with the corresponding lab work.
Okay, that is a really important distinction.
I think it clearly shows that on slide 5, annual physical with lab.
Right, but we have 1,300 employees that will hear that differently, just
Understand that.
based on what I know.
Any other comment? I'm sorry, continue, Commissioner.
And then if, from my perspective, you can get to the incented payroll deductions without hitting the biometric standards today.
Correct.
It's through a reasonable alternative standard that simply asks for the provider and the patient to work together to get to a good situation,
Correct.
to a health improved status.
Correct.
And so I'll give you just my perspective on this, is that I would not change it this year with the intention of changing it again should you have a carrier change, because that is what's going to have happen.
Okay. Any other comments for the board? Commissioner Lockhart?
So the current recommendation is to keep things essentially the same, except for we are removing what it is that Commissioner Herr is suggesting, that we maybe ought to keep the status quo. I just want to make sure that we're...
That's the recommendation, given, and I'm not necessarily saying I disagree with any opinion from the dais, but this was kind of the broad picture recommendation to encourage the annual physical with lab work as a positive message this year. the carrier goal would be to be able to capture that lab work. And if we wanted to flip the biometrics back on next year, we could do that, evaluating whether or not that would be something to do. Go ahead.
Well, so any change is, of course, maybe great when the change happens, but then when that second change occurs, then it's like, oh, well, now you're making me do it again because we forgot that it really is going back to something similar that we did the year before, because our most recent recollection is, what we work with. The fact that we're talking about moving to an incentive-based program as opposed to you didn't meet the criteria, therefore it's a perceived punishment, would that, in your mind, help to alleviate the perception that the employees would be, oh, here we are again, they did it to us again? I'm trying to figure out, because I agree fundamentally with Commissioner Herr's mindset that to change it and then change it again probably isn't a great thing from an employee perspective. But at the same time, I love the fact that you're talking about moving to an incentive-based program. So I'm just wondering how we can, I want the best of both worlds. I want to have my cake and eat it too, is what I want.
Well, you have a really good cake now. So we really were looking at holistically trying to make it as positive as possible. So having the annual physical with the labs is the equivalent, really, of a reasonable alternative standard. So you're kind of doing that. So we're taking a bit of a stick out. We want to add incentives, so to expand people's taking advantage of Sharon and her capabilities. And that could be based on exercise, based on diet, based on mental health engagement. There are a number of things that we could do. So I think rather than thinking we would automatically go back to the biometric standard next year, we were hoping we would have great momentum with the positive, have everybody with their annual physical and in a relationship with their doctor, and still have the payroll deductions, but not necessarily flip back on the biometrics.
There you go. Yeah.
So, okay.
And I'm sorry, just from our perspective, in talking with Sharon, one of the things we really wanted to try to enhance is the ongoing engagement throughout the year, because right now, we do get great participation with the physical and the biometrics. Obviously, we have, I think it's like 96% of our employees are participating, but it's kind of a snapshot in time. They do it, and then they maybe aren't continuing to do something throughout the year to keep them. I'm guilty of it. Right before I have to go, and I wait till the very, very end. I wait till like September, but I'm like, oh, I better, start watching what I'm eating and things like that. So we want people to do it throughout the year so that we really are getting them healthier. So that the engagement piece was really important to myself, Sharon, the benefits team, just from, making our employees healthy and happy.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner?
I just am going to throw in the last thought. Wellness programs aren't simply about reducing healthcare costs. They're just not. They're about improving the health status of the individuals in the program. And unfortunately, we human beings in this country don't improve our own health status, most of us, of our own fruition. I ate Pop-Tarts before I came down onto the dais, so I own that. There's a lot of candy floating around up here. Nope, I'm going to resist that. The notion that it's a takeaway or it's hard, eating broccoli is hard, but I do it. The reality of this program is that it's built not to feel good. It's not built to hurt, but it's not built for feel good. It's built because we're prolonging the lives of and we're improving the lives of the individuals that work here and their family members. And so I would give a passionate plea that if we're only paying attention to our numbers once a year right now because we're looking at them and that was the admission here, that we not stop paying attention to our numbers at least once a year. The idea that we're going to build engagement on top of a program that's already working is awesome. That's a thing that we should have done years ago. But dismantling the underlying pinning of the program to build engagement for a feel-good, as I'll just be the mom of the employees here, I'm going to say no to that, just so you know.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would like to add that, healthcare is extremely complicated, as we all know, especially wellness. It gets even more complicated when you add the two of them together. I think by engaging the physician annually, that the employee would be doing with the labs is the right approach. We're still doing that, our existing program, the biometrics, but more importantly, introducing incentives as we move forward. I think it's more of the carrot than the stick, so to speak. And I, for one, would like to take a look at what staff's recommendations are, and I think it's something that we should be looking at to be more holistically. And what a lot of times, and I'm just as guilty of it, come September, I'm the one that's trying to figure out how to lose the X amount of pounds, or trying to eat right for 30 days to get my blood work. So I'm just as guilty. But I'm hoping that this will be a more of a year-long process, and I think that's what this does. And so that's why I could support the staff's recommendation. So we're going to need to have a motion to move forward in either keeping what we have or taking staff's recommendation, or another direction from the board. Commissioner Herr?
I'll move to keep what we have.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing no other further discussion, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Aye. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go to the consent agenda, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess, if there's no objection. Before we go to the consent agenda, there was an individual who wants to address us on items 4 and 6. Shani, can you introduce that individual?
Yes, Ed Meeson.
Okay. Mr. Neeson, are you present? Okay. Just give us a minute. Mr. Neeson, I apologize, we normally don't have, even though we're allowed to, I didn't realize that you were wanting to speak on those two items. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. I was hoping to speak before the last presentation, because it has to do with both of those things, both the proclamation on the mental health awareness and on the wellness program update.
Can you give us your name and address for the record?
Oh, yes, sorry. Ed Meeson, 2247 King John's Court in Winter Park.
Okay, thank you.
Seminole County, part of Winter Park. So it happens to do to two different things. We just recently celebrated Mother's Day, and my mother was an RN for 50 years. And the last quarter century, she was a psych nurse. So things about mental health are very important to me. And I thought it was great that you adopted the mental health awareness program month proclamation. And all those whereases shows how important it is for mental health. However, I didn't see a lot of it in the other presentation, the wellness program update. So what I was hoping to do is that bring your awareness to the fact that you're being aware of mental health, but I didn't see any part of that. Maybe it's in a different part, but I would hope that the council members would ask about that and include that. And all those whereases, when you think about it and you look at it, are not only great money-saving things, because a lot of health has to do with the mental part of it. It also helps to solve problems before they become real problems. So that was my only comment. I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board. Thank you very much.
And so just for the record, we do have a very good medical insurance program for our employees, and part of that is mental health.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And again, I apologize for not recognizing you earlier. Well, now, before we move on to the consent agenda, public participation. Pursuant to Florida law, the public has the right to be heard on all propositions except when the Board of County Commissioners is acting on ministerial or emergency matters or conducting a meeting exempt from Section 286.011 Florida statute. The public time will be 3 minutes for individuals, 6 minutes for groups. The right to be heard on quasi-judicial hearings will be governed by Florida law. The public will be provided the opportunity to be heard on all non-agenda items. At the end of the meeting, proper decorum will be observed at all times. And we'll now move to consent agenda. I'd like to ask the county manager, is there any items that need to be removed or added?
There are no changes today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members? Commissioner Constantine?
Yes, I'd like to remove 11 and 26.
11 and 26 will be pulled for separate discussion.
26.
Okay. Any other suggestions? Is there direction for the...
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Zimbauer.
I will move approval for consent agenda items 7 through 10, 12 through 25, 26, 7, and the clerk's 28.
I think 26
26 is pulled, please.
I'm sorry.
27, 20.
Can you repeat that
27,
motion? Can you repeat
27,
that?
yeah.
Can you repeat that motion just for clarification?
Sure.
sir?
7 through 10.
Okay.
12 through 25.
Okay.
And 27 and 28, the clerk's report.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. We'll now move on to item number 11. Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I do that, I just wanted to state that in 25, anybody that's concerned about the Wilson Landings canoes, there is an RFP out now to replace the company. And on 27, the vendor has agreed to our new plastics policy. So that was really wonderful to hear. On 11, the concern I have, and I just want, I'm stating it for the purposes of all of us to understand, that this is in the area, the Wekiva area of special concern. It is, they are in the service area of Sunshine Utilities. And but they're going to go for well and septic tank. And the reason they're going for well and septic tank is because, number one, they can. The fact of the matter is our policy is 50 lots or more, which I think is grossly over the number. And secondly, because they feel that doing a gravity pump for the 4 is too much cost. Now, frankly, I had to do a gravity pump at my house because Altamont Springs requires everybody to be on sewer. I understand it's a city, not a county. But if we are truly concerned about the protection of this is not all Seminole County, this is the Wekiva area, the area of special concern. And if we're truly concerned about that, then we have to take a stand at some point. We're putting in septic tanks when we know that in the future these septic tanks are going to have to be replaced or have to be changed in some form or fashion. In addition, because this is just a little bit over an acre, they don't have to put in the upgraded septic tank. So it makes it even worse. And I would just like our newly minted director to comment on that. That's my question to Ms. Ornberg. Am I out of line here?
Well, before we ask staff to do this, I'd like to ask the county attorney to address it, because this is a minor plat. This isn't a development order. This isn't a rezone. This is a plat.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I understand that. I'm trying to bring a point up, not for this one, but for the future, that we have to address this. I understand we cannot deal with this as a plat, but I think that we have to at least bring the issue to the table. So I'm not questioning, the requirement of what this one is doing.
Okay,
I am asking for a future.
And Commissioner, I understand that, but I just wanted to make sure that if you want to talk about the future, that's great, but this is about a minor plat.
This is a classic example of the concern I have.
I've got a question for the commissioner.
Yes, sir.
For the benefit of all, area of special concern, what is that?
I will let the expert speak on that.
Good morning. Kim Ornberg, Interim Deputy Director of Environmental Services. The area you're speaking of is the Wekiva Protection Area, the PFA, as the state is referring to it. We had discussed this, like Commissioner Constantine had said, it's outside of the boundaries as far as the upgrades for septic tanks by the state, because they're slightly over an acre. So within the protection area, because of the spring, because the water from that area goes most directly to Wekiva Springs, so that's why it is considered an area of special concern. We had talked about potentially as part of the holistic water policy, looking at septic tanks in this area. This is something we've been looking at for here and across the county. So. And also, I've been talking to Rebecca. We talked about looking at it as part of the future comp plan.
Can you give us Rebecca's last name?
I'm sorry, Rebecca Hammock, the Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Ms. Ornberg. And again, Mr. Chairman, I'm pointing out a classic example of the concern that I have that this is going through. We're not going to be able to do anything, but I think our standards, being the minimum standards of the state for anywhere, is way out of line when it comes to the Wekiva Protection Area and putting in not even the more enhanced septic tanks and well. Thank you very much, and I will move the approval of 11.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any discussion? And again, Commissioner, I have no issues with trying to protect the Wekiva, no issue with trying to protect the springs. I just saw this as a minor plat, but I do appreciate your concerns. Seeing no other discussion, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. We'll now move to item number 26, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and this is a concern that I have, again, of the fact that I believe Ms. Dredge, is our chief, if you want to address this, that we all are concerned in our own areas about fire protection. This particular station has been being built for quite a long time. It's way past due. We understand the reason we have to do what we're doing, but I just want to make sure that that area, which is both covers both Commissioner Lockhart and my area, is well protected, and that when can we expect now the fire station to be completed?
I can definitely answer the first part, Matt Kinley, Fire Chief, Seminole County. There's been no change in the protection in that area. We're still in the current station where we joint occupy with Altamont at their main campus. We still have the same number of units, same number of people that would be moving into the new station, which is across the street. So there's been zero impact to our response capabilities. As far as when the station will be done, I do not have that information.
That was your question, Mr. Dredge.
For the record, John Jesh, Public Works Director, County Engineer. Today, if the board approves the elimination of that contract, we will be reaching out to get another contractor to finish what we have. We have about 2% left of the station to be completed. When we get a contractor, I can give you the exact day, how long it will take to finish the contract, the station.
Commissioner Herr, then Commissioner Zimbardo.
Easy question, John. What percent?
About 2% left.
2. Thank you.
Commissioner Zimbardo.
This may be for Mr. Dredge and maybe for procurement. What method of delivery was utilized with this contract to build this station?
As a design bid.
Okay. And has this entity built for the county previously?
No.
And how was this contractor graded and by whom?
What we have, we have the plan, we put it as a bid, and there is a criteria and a review by the purchasing, and sometime we have a member of the other department, fire department, public work, and they review it and make sure they meet all the criteria, and that's how, based on that criteria, they award the contract.
So our staff shortlisted it and brought to us?
This is not shortlisted. They were the lowest bidder, the lower qualified bidder, and we brought it to you, and you approved it.
Great. That actually anticipated my next question. Okay. And we're going to be able to recover on the surety bond?
We contacted the surety bond, but we still have some, we're hoping we still have some fund available. We have not paid to the contractor, hopefully to finish what we have left to complete.
Okay. So the anticipation is it going to cost us more? If the surety...
Our estimate will be, with the money we have left, should cover it.
Okay, great.
But until we get a proposal and we know what's the market, I cannot tell you. But
Understood.
that's what we discuss as a staff with purchasing, fire department, and we hope that they'll be able, what we have left, we'll be able to cover it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dredge.
Before we go too much further, Mr. Applegate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And without getting into specifics for obvious reasons, there will be issues with that contractor. So,
Thank you for that update. Any other discussion?
Move approval of 26.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passed unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 29, which is on a regular scheduled agenda. We hear from staff at this time.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Pat Hughes, Planning and Development. Item 29 is a request from Raquel Benavides, owner, for a waiver of the code enforcement lien due to a financial hardship. The property is located at 3530 Celery Avenue in Sanford. The lien totals $13,100. On August 26, 2021, the property was found to be in violation of Seminole County Code, Section 95-3A, rubbish. An order was issued by the Code Enforcement Board giving the respondent a compliance date of September 9, 2021, and a fine of $100 per day if the violation was not corrected. After reinspection on September 14, 2021, the Code Enforcement Officer filed an affidavit of noncompliance. On December 2nd, 2021, the Code Enforcement Board issued an order finding noncompliance and imposing a fine lien in the amount of $8,400 for 84 days of noncompliance, with the fine continuing to accrue. On January 18th, 2022, the Code Enforcement Officer filed an affidavit of compliance after the respondent remedied the violation. Seminole County is in negotiations to purchase a portion of this property for the Monroe Trail Loop, and on April 26, 2022, an agreement for property interest was approved and authorized by this board. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve a total waiver to the Code Enforcement Special Magistrate lien of $13,100 for 21-45-CEB on the property located at 3530 Celery Avenue in Sanford, owned by Raquel Benavides, and authorize the chairman to execute the release of lien. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding the code enforcement case.
Any questions for the staff from the board? Okay, thank you. This time we have from the applicant or a representative from the applicant. If you can give us your name and address for the record, sir, and your relation.
Yes, my name is Darrell McLean at 3500 well, it used to be Celery Avenue, now it's McLean Preserve Point. I'm here representing my good friend and neighbor of 20 years, Rachel, concerning this issue. And this is the first time I've been here since 2004, so it's kind of interesting. I've enjoyed it. Rachel is, as I said, my neighbor. She's over 90 years old, and she's on Social Security, and she's obviously struggles to get by with that. The code enforcement was brought forward not by a neighbor of our neighborhood. It was brought forward by a code enforcement officer from the city of Sanford who doesn't live in our neighborhood but happened to come by there and see the property. And of course, next door to Rachel is a burnt down house that does not have a code enforcement issue at the current time, and it's been that way for 7 or 8 years. Rachel has agreed to the purchase of the property for the trail system, even though it's going to be approximately 10 feet from her front door, which I would have a problem with personally if it was in front of my house. She doesn't object to the program. She's wanting to stay in her home. Unfortunately, if you enforce this fine, Rachel will not have the money to pay off her mortgage, which the bank will require because of it's been through a couple of foreclosures and they've worked with her to keep her in the house. And she will not be able to agree to allowing this property to be purchased for the trail. So she wants to work with the county. She wants the trail to come in without any objection, but financially she just cannot do it. She will not have the money necessary to pay off her mortgage when y'all purchase the property, because her mortgage is more than what she will have once you take the fine out of these dollars. So if you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer them, and of course Rachel would be happy to speak to her. Next to her is Augustine, her good friend, who cleaned up the property the first time. I went by, it looked good to me, but the code enforcement officer from Seminole County didn't think so. So we went back at it again, and he got it all cleaned up. And these are very fine people, and I just hope that you can work with this elderly Hispanic lady that lives in our neighborhood and is my good friend. So if you have any questions,
Any questions
I'd be
from the
happy
board?
to answer them.
Okay.
I'd just like to say thank you to Mr. McLean for assisting with that issue on behalf of his neighbor, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to the board, Shane, is there any request to speak?
No, sir.
Anyone in the audience would like to speak on this issue? Going to close public input. Board direction, Commissioner Herr.
Yes, I move to grant a total waiver due to financial hardship of the Code Enforcement Board lien.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time, we'll move on to item number 30. Hear from staff.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Again, for the record, Pat Hughes, Planning and Development. Item 30 is a request from Becky Mizell, owner, for a waiver of the code enforcement lien due to a medical and financial hardship. The property is located at 2790 Celery Avenue in Sanford. The lien totals $13,450. On July 20th, 2017, the property was found to be in violation of Seminole County Code, Section 105.1, construction without the required permits. The respondent enclosed a porch without the required permits. An order was issued by the Code Enforcement Special Magistrate giving the respondent a compliance date of April 12, 2018, and a fine of $50 per day if the violation was not corrected. After reinspection on April 13, 2018, the inspector filed an affidavit of noncompliance. On September 13, 2018, the Code Enforcement Special Magistrate issued an order imposing a fine lien in the amount of $7,700 for 154 days of noncompliance. On September 13, 2019, the inspector filed an affidavit of compliance after the respondent obtained the necessary permits. Seminole County is in negotiations to purchase a portion of this property for the Monroe Trail Loop, and on April 26, 2022, an agreement for the property interest was approved and authorized by this board. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve a total waiver to the Code Enforcement Special Magistrate lien of $13,450 for case 18-09-CESM on the property located at 2790 Celery Avenue in Sanford, owned by Becky Mizell, and authorize the chairman to execute the release of lien. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding the code enforcement case.
Any questions from the board at this time? Thank you. Is the property owner here who'd like to speak to us? Is the property owner present? Seeing none, we'll go to the public input. Shani, do you have any written request?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak to the board on this issue? Anyone in the audience? We'll close public input and now go for board direction. Commissioner, I'm sorry.
I just have a
Go to Commissioner Herr first, then we'll go to you.
No, go ahead.
Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. Either the attorney or yourself, in both cases, you said that, we purchased the property. Did each get 131 or just combined was 131,000?
Rebecca Hammock, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. For the record, Rebecca Hammock, Development Services Director. And John can probably clarify the amount, but my understanding, and just to clarify for the record, the county isn't purchasing actual property, it's just purchasing a property interest to have an easement for the trail. And my understanding is that each property owner is getting that amount for the property interest. Each one is getting, no? Okay. I'll have John correct that then.
That's why I'm asking.
Thank you, Rebecca. Mr. Dredge, could you introduce yourself when you get to the podium, please?
John Zesh, Public Works Director, County Engineer. Two pieces of property, one of them about 133,000 and some change, the other one about 62 something. That is a different amount and depend on the impact and depend on the size.
Okay. Thank you, John. Commissioner Herr?
I move to approve.
Second.
A motion, second discussion. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Constantine?
I think this has special significance as far as, before we move forward. I think that, that these were justified, and before I say anything, but in the future, when we're buying pieces of, or buying property interests of 62,000 and 131, it just seemed very misleading that then they have they request total waiver because of a personal hardship. I don't really think as much as it's a hardship as the fact that, they wanted as part of the agreement that we waived the price, and so, or waived the fines. So I'm not, critical of this one, but I think if this ever occurs in the future, I think we need to be more honest about the presentation and the fact that, when we're talking about 190,000, 60 plus to one and 131 to another, and then they're asking for a waiver of 13 on financial hardship, kind of disingenuous, if you will, not from them, but I'm just talking about for the future. I think we need to crux it in a different circumstance that including with the sale, we feel that it's in the best interest of the citizens that we waive the fee. That's all I was just trying to point out.
Thank you, Commissioner Hara.
I absolutely agree. The time for disclosure on that was when we were voting on the first initiative to pay. I did question both in briefing, and one of the things that became compelling was the notion that in this instance, the total package required no legal fees, which was also exceptionally advantageous.
Yes.
No additional legal fees. So in whole, we did a really good job, but the disclosure for that for us should have been upfront.
And that's
It would be
all I'm
helpful.
trying to say
Yep.
for the future.
Well noted.
Agreed.
Commissioner Zimbo.
And I agree completely, and I think we all agree that, the reality is we're just want these properties cleaned up.
Yeah.
We don't want these big sums of money. That's the reason to get things cleaned up. It just keeps accumulating. And as long as we get compliance, I think that's what we're really looking for, notwithstanding, the fees, admin fees that our people spend, dealing with this over many, many years. So I concur.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other discussion, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the county manager's staff briefing, item number 31. I'd like to ask Mr. Applegate to introduce it. Mr. Applegate?
Actually, I'm going to turn it over immediately to our Supervisor of Elections.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And I thank you very much, Mr. Applegate. I appreciate that. This morning, accompanying me is our General Counsel and our Chief Operations Officer, Helen Travado. Before I get into it, I'd like to take a moment because I wanted to read something to you. It is a letter that I received from a voter in Virginia during the 2020 election cycle. She wrote, "I saw this article in the September 21st Washington Post on your efforts to bring about a smooth election in Seminole County. The enclosed article might be of some interest to your children and your grandchildren in the future. What a great example you are setting for them. I sincerely hope all goes well and for you and for your staff. You're setting such a great example for public officials, putting performance over political and personal interest. Thanks for all you do and the job that you do and the getting the job done approach." That's who I am.
Just for the record, can you introduce yourself with your full name
Sure.
and position?
I'm Chris Anderson. I am the Seminole County Supervisor of Elections.
Okay, thank you.
And I've been here for the last two meetings. And thank you, Chairman, again. Like I said, that's who I am, getting the job done. And I've got that way because I believe in this proposition that we win when we're being better people. And, I am a Republican. I am a Republican that believes in bringing people together, rallying the troops around a given task. That's what we did in 2020. And inspiring them to believe that regardless of the task in front of us, that this is what we can do. We can do it together. I also believe in the American dream. I believe that a little boy from Vero Beach, Florida, could receive a write-in vote from a voter in Virginia for President of the United States of America. That was a very humbling moment for me. I was told that my election signified that it's possible. And your support of this building project would signify of those that look like me and the struggle that they went through, it wasn't all for nothing. I've done my job, and I would say today that now it's time for you to do yours. And I'll end with that, and if you have any questions for me, I know that my staff has provided you with some information that was requested out of the last meeting. Also here is a representative from Schenkel Schultz if someone would like to ask some questions about the needs assessment and space study that was done.
Thank you. Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you. Chris, Mr. Anderson, I see you brought your beautiful family with you today. It's nice to see you, Ebony. I'm going to talk firstly personally, and then I'm going to talk hopefully collectively. In our discussions, I don't think I have ever disregarded your need for a new building. I have questioned the location that you originally wanted to do with your public-private partnership that you were first doing, and you wanted to go even further away from the main focus of the citizenry, and you said because you weren't getting any cooperation with some staff people here. But I do take concern and object to the fact that I've been called by 2 different news sources saying, why are you stopping the supervisor of elections from being able to build a building? Why is your commission doing that? Why are you guys putting roadblocks in front of him? And why don't you just approve this? Now, I personally want it at 5 points. We've all agreed to that. I have not heard one commissioner here state that they don't want it there or that they don't want you to have a building there. The question, and listen, I remember when we first talked, you got very upset with me because I just didn't approve what you wanted. And when I try to explain to you, it's not that I don't approve. I approve of the building, I just don't approve of your solution way further out from the airport. So you and I are on the same page when it comes to putting it at 5 points and giving you as much needs assessment, rooms and everything. But I will tell you, and I didn't have as much need to find out the survey from all 67 counties as some, but I will support my commissioners in asking questions, important questions. When your folks say, we've surveyed all 67, but we're only giving 5 counties that could or could not be cherry-picked, we don't know, because we're doing our due diligence and we're doing our job to make sure that we ensure that we are using the tax, we are appropriating the taxpayers' money the most efficiently and wisely that we can. Now, I did ask one question, and that one question, or in addition, could we not share, because we were putting it at 5 points, training facilities? Because you were looking for 2 training rooms, 1,500 square feet. You know the price of buildings now are pretty expensive. And I said, is there any place else? And I would like to know that. And I have gotten it from my staff just the other day, from our staff, that there is an 1,800 training room, 1,800 square foot training room facility in the sheriff's department, which to me, with the few times that you use training facilities, and I'm not saying it's not 5, 10, it's just not every single day, that possibility could be used and we could save some space there. Because what you're asking for is 4 times the size you have today. And I guess I'm not objecting to your building. I'm not objecting to putting it at 5 points. I'm not objecting to anything. What I am objecting to is the feeling that you are blaming us for some reason that we have some sort of hidden agenda to stop you from building this building. And that is not true. But what is true is that I believe each one of these commissioners are trying to do their own due diligence in finding the exact space that we need, along with you, and doing it as quickly and properly and efficiently and as concerned about the taxpayers' dollars. So what I object to is saying that because we're asking questions, we're somehow undermining the supervisor of elections. You did a great election last time, and I told you that many times. And I told you when you were concerned, man, these people are giving me a hard time. I said, Chris, people give us hard times. And you did a great job in your election. And you will do another great job in the election in '24 and beyond. And we will get this building. But please understand, it's not you versus us. We're trying to just get the right building, the right size, as quickly and as effectively as we can. And that's all I want to say. I'm not asking for a retort or anything. I truly just want you to know no one here is putting up roadblocks to stop you from getting this building.
Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Zimbauer.
I would say that I understand here my fellow commissioners' concerns and don't necessarily disagree with some of those. But I will tell you that I've watched this go on for, I think, well over 2 years now. And there's probably plenty of fault to go around. Us, SOE, our staff, changes in staff, how things moved along, how it was not included initially in the 5 points plan. That need came after the rest of the county was considered for the 5 points plan initially. There was a thought process of maybe it's best to keep supervisor election away from 5 points because of, you know, the divisiveness so much in elections and so forth. And ultimately, it has come to the point where we finally are able to have some candid conversation. So I would just ask my fellow commissioners, in all fairness, I think there's been delays and miscommunications all the way along. I think all of us agree that it is in the best interest of our county and our citizens that our supervisor of elections, as well as our other constitutional officers, have appropriate facilities to perform the duties that our county citizens have come to deserve and demand. So I'm not necessarily here to decide or consider what was said in a news article and those kinds of things. Personally, I'd just like to see us move forward once and for all and make a decision so that we can put this behind us.
Any other comments? Commissioner Herr?
So I agree with everything that's been said before. I struggle with the insinuations. I'm just going to call that like it is. And I struggle with the notion that there's an insinuation that because you are who you are and you have the background that you do, that we should simply roll over on the taxpayer and give you whatever you ask for. And that's just simply not what I think I was put here to do. So I respect that you have a job to do and you want to do it to the best of your ability in a facility that's appropriate to do that. And I ask that you respect that I have a job to do on behalf of the taxpayers of Seminole County that asked me to step in front of unnecessary spending on their behalf. So it is with that background that I ask the following questions. And had we not asked questions from the very beginning of this, I would point out that we were headed down the path of a public-private partnership with no RFP on a 60,000 square foot building. And so I'm glad that we are here having a discussion with the best outcome in mind. Would you mind walking us through the document that was handed out on the dais today? This is the first time we've seen it.
Sure. First of all, I'm going to respond to a couple things here. First of all, Commissioner Constantine, what I said in the news article was that I was concerned about the delays. Secondly, as far as the miscommunication, to be clear, the first time you ever told me that you wanted this project to be at 5 points was at the end of actually it was earlier this year. You were well aware of the project in 2020 when I started it, and there was no communication being asked. It wasn't 60,000, it was 45,000. The only reason why a private partner or public-private partnership was even put in place is because your county staff directed us to move toward a lease in a meeting that I demanded on May of 2021. So what you are objecting to is essentially your own staff's direction. I didn't do any of those things. Actually, on February 5th of 2021, I was sent an email by your county staff removing me from the talks of 5 points. That was well over a year ago. Well over a year ago. So let me finish, if you would mind, because I let everybody else speak. I was removed from those talks because I'm the one who called the county manager beforehand and asked to be placed to come to 5 points. I did that at the beginning of last year. And here we are in May, in the middle of 2022. So the only reason why we're talking about 5 points, or us being at 5 points, is not because of Commissioner Constantine's concern or anyone else's concern on the board. It's because I made the phone call to your county manager and put us into those talks that we were later removed from, and I'm still waiting to be put back into. That has still not been done if we're going to talk about things that should be done as far as information given back and forth. You received a survey that was not 5 people. That was a survey that I did on my own because I wanted to give you even more of justification as to why we need more space. You've seen it with your own eyes, which is the best evidence that you can give to justify a need. But I went ahead and did a survey that was about 21 election offices that were comparable in size, because comparing us to Palm Beach County, as you can see on the form that I submitted to you, they're building a 155,000 square foot facility and they have well over 1 million voters. That's completely inappropriate to compare Seminole County to Palm Beach County. What the board is going to have to do is they're going to have to trust their election officials. And if you want to do your due diligence, pick up the phone and call, as Commissioner Zinbauer did, which I was pleasantly surprised by. Call SOE offices. If you're going to do your due diligence, do the correct due diligence. The P3 partnership was only created because I was getting roadblocked in every other avenue. You have a timetable that shows you all the things that we went down. We considered modular units, concretables. We went through all these different things, communicating consistently with the county, only to still to find delays. So that is something that, as a board, you have to deal with internally. But I'm just reporting to you what we received as far as cooperation from our office. We've always been in contact with everyone. We have had the county manager, your former interim county manager went with us on tours of every facility that we looked at throughout the county. There was always maximum communication coming from my direction to you. It was just not being received from us. Now, I will say that the buck stops here at this board. You don't get to pass the buck just like I don't as a supervisor of elections. If something goes great, for me, it goes great. If it goes bad, it goes bad. Either way, it's on me. And I understand that as being elected in office. So the idea that I'm saying something that is untruthful is completely false. I am telling the truth, and I have the dates and the emails to back up each and everything that I've said here. Like I said, the only reason why we are even talking about 5 points is because I am the one who put us in that discussion well over a year ago. Now, as far as the survey is concerned, those 67 supervisor of elections are not required to respond back to us. They don't work for you or I. I actually, interestingly enough, I sent the request to my fellow colleagues of the things that were asked from you, Commissioner Herr, and I got back about 27 responses, which is about appropriate from all 67, and they felt as though the requests that were being asked of me were completely outside the scope of the discussion. And I did that because I wanted to make sure that I was being very reasonable in my response to the things that that have happened in the procurement of this new building. So very accomplished SOEs have all responded back, not all of them, but like I said, about 27 of them, saying that, why do you need an election worker manual to figure out whether or not you need a building? And, you know, if we're talking about taxpayer dollars, all that stuff that was asked cost $1,400 to be printed. We spent taxpayer dollars on needs assessment. We spent money on conceptual designs. That's where I'm at. I'm saying we've put time and money, taxpayer dollars behind this. There should be no more delays, that there needs to be a decision made. And that decision lies with the board. There's no more information that we can give to justify it. You've seen the building. You've seen it with your own eyes. And from the last meeting, the consensus on the board is that, yes, we agree that, yes, Chris, you need space. Well, then if that's the case, then we need to start taking the appropriate steps to make sure that that happens rather than have this back and forth about who did what.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. And I think it,
I had a question that's still
You had some questions, so
outstanding.
please ask. And I'm going to allow our Chief Operations Officer, Helen Travato, to go through that form for you.
Good morning. My name is Helen Ergot Travato. I am the Chief Operations Officer for the Seminole County Supervisor of Elections Office, and I am here to hopefully answer any of your questions that you have about our design concept, our space needs, just anything in general, because we really put a lot of effort to design this building with our needs in mind. And I've been with the office since 2008, so hopefully I can give you some background and whatever you need. Go ahead.
The question stands. There was a document handed out on the dais this morning that has no explanation whatsoever, some numbers on it. I think I know what it means, but it's probably worth explaining, and we probably need to get one into the clerk's hand if you don't have one.
No problem. So it was conveyed to me that you had some questions, or that the board had some questions about our needs assessment and how we actually came up with what we would want in a building, how much space that we're going to have in a building, and what we did to collaborate with the needs assessment company that came in and worked with us to do the space study. And when we did that, we were asked about linear space and our documents and just a bunch of different formulas that they have to use for that. And we kind of came to the conclusion that, well, that's really only about maybe 12% of what we use our warehouse space for. While we do have documents that we have to keep permanent retention, and we have documents that we have 22 months retention, it is such a small, modicum amount of space of what we actually need in our warehouse. So we came up with a better solution to say, all right, well, our space needs are more on population, our voter population, the amount of precincts that we have to determine the amount of equipment we need, and we started to go from there. Then we took the last 20 years and we said, okay, well, how much has our voter population, this is not, general population, it's what we have in our voter records. And we did some comparisons and we came up with, all right, it's about 70,000 people growth. So with that in mind, we did a 2030 and a 2040. And we said, okay, if we add 70,000 people, and we have about 4,190 people for each precinct, this is how many precincts we're going to need. Based on those precincts, we have precinct bins, we have equipment, we have DS200s, we have all sorts of things that have to go out to each precinct. So again, everything's exponential, and we went about it that way to get a building that would be right-sized for us now versus 10 years in the future versus 20 years in the future.
So can you actually walk us through the numbers on the spreadsheet?
Sure.
And can we put it up on the screen, perhaps?
Do you have your copy? Chris is going to make you my laser pointer, if you will.
There's no point on that.
There's no pointer on that.
So again, we're gonna humanize
You can
this.
point actually on the table, Chris. If you put your finger on there, it'll show, yeah, there you go.
Okay, so in 2010, you look for 2000 and then 2010, we were originally going to do a % increase. But then as our county grows, the % increase is actually smaller and smaller because your base number is bigger and bigger. So we said, let's not do a % increase, let's do people increase. So then when we said, all right, between 2000 and 2010, we had about 75,412 more voters in our voter rolls. We did the same thing until 2020, and we got 69,067 voters. So then we said, all right, well, let's just do a rough estimate of 70,000. We'll just take a nice round number, because we're projecting here. We're just trying to come up with what are we going to need? And we don't want to come to you with something that's outrageous, but we also didn't want to come to you, have a building that's going to be outgrown in 10 years either. We wanted something right size. So we came up with the 70,000 people. Then if you look where 2030, and it says the 405, 183, and then 2040 where it says the 475, 183. So again, that's just doing an addition of 70,000 voters. Now where it says DS 200 inventory and you have it say 131, we did a projection based off of, okay, how many precincts are we going to have? If we add 70,000 people, right, our precinct projection for 405 is 97. So where it says precinct projections at the bottom, 97. And then for 2040, it says 113. So just basing that, because each precinct has to have its own equipment. We have to have, DS200s, we have to have all that sort of stuff, and it's exponential. So you add one precinct and you have all this extra things. We have voting booths, we have, everything has to be portable, because we have to be able to get it to our 80 precincts, right? It all gets loaded on a truck. We have to have it outside there. And our equipment, especially our DS200s and our express votes, all of those, and I'm sure that with ballot security these days, they have to be included in our building. We looked at, can we split the space? We know that there are offices that have multiple buildings. Those places that have multiple buildings, they all want what we have. They want the one building solution. And we are a small enough county that we're lucky we don't have to have two locations to service our voters, because we are such a compact county, right? So with that in mind, we worked with Single Salt and came up with what would be right size now, what would be a building for 10 years from now, and what would be a building for 20 years from now. And we were really hoping that we could get a building for 20 years from now, because that's about where we are right now. And we outgrew our building in 2018, and we've been kind of struggling to make things work ever since. So do you have any additional questions for that?
So I'm just going to ask a follow-up question. So if I do simple math and we're saying that the best way to do the space needs analysis is based on voter count, if I look at the 2030 voter count and compare it back to the 2000 voter count, which at that point, that building would have been bigger than we needed because we built it for future. If we outgrew it in 18, pretty good to the people that did that back then, because we were within 2 years of hitting the number. So not too far off. But I'm comparing the 2030 number back to the 2000 number, and it's 2.13. And your current square footage is 15,000, and we're asking for, I would like to hear them say that.
Our current space is 18,000.
And you're asking for?
And our right size building for 10 years from now would be 45,000 square feet, and for 20 years from now would be 52,000 square feet.
And that's where the math doesn't, I'm not 100% certain I'm there on the math, because your right size building at 303 voters, that's when you grew out. Your current square footage stopped holding steady for you in 2018. You were at 303,000 voters. You're moving up to 405 in 2030, which I can do that math in my head, is a third difference. It's 1/3 larger, not 3 times larger. And at 475, it's 175,000, it's roughly 50, 60%. That's off my head, don't hold me to that. it's much different than what's being asked for. And that's where I'm stumbling a little bit in terms of the ask. And I do agree with what was said earlier, is that we don't disagree. We want you all in one place. We want it efficient, effective, secure, perfection if we can get perfection. But we have to get to the right number in terms of how large this space needs to be to minimize the impact to the tax-paying citizens of Seminole County.
Okay.
It has to be the right size.
I understand what you're saying. When we did, because again, this is just a basis, there is no industry standard for elections offices. So we had to kind of put something together to say, how do we determine how much more space we're going to need? Right? And again, everything's kind of based on precincts. We also have to take into consideration equipment, right? So we just purchased ballot on demand printers for our early voting sites. We are very excited about that. But we have to have somewhere to put them, right? Right now, they're just on carts. They're actually shoved to the side in a walkway. We don't really have a nice space for those. As technology increases, we're going to need space for those increases as well. Mail ballot input equipment, along with high-speed counters and things like that. As these things are coming around and being introduced, we have to have somewhere where we can put those as well so that we can utilize them, so we can provide the best service that we can. And so again, everything is exponential, right? And I just wanted to make a comment. I love collaboration. I teach election worker classes. We're always looking for extra space. That space that we have for those election worker classes is also going to double as canvassing board space. So we wanted to, again, a lot of our needs, there are flex needs that we need that space for a certain amount of time, and then we need to move on. And, we use our current conference room as a canvassing board room, as a training room, as, you name it, it's a flex space, we're going to use it, because we already took our conference space over with all of our mail ballot equipment. So, again, with those kind of things, we, with our current operation, are bursting at the seams in our building right now. But for a right-sized building, we have limitations on what we can do. There are some offices that can prepare all of their election equipment and send it out, and they don't even have to have their election workers come by the day before the election and pick up some of their stuff. Their operation, to me, that is more efficient. We do not have the space to be able to lay that out. We don't. They have nice rolling cages. We can't even begin to contemplate doing something like that because there is absolutely no space for us to do it. So we are limited in what we can and cannot do by our space and what we have. We do the best that we can. We make it work. So, I know you're saying we outgrew, but we didn't have the space to grow, and we didn't have that extra space to make our office more efficient or make our elections more efficient. Does that make sense? So we outgrew it a while ago.
Thank you. Commissioner Zimbow.
Going to this form that you have up here, and I've heard a lot of talk about flex space. I've heard a lot of talk about where we're headed in population, likely registered voters. But I don't see anything. What struck me when I reached out and spoke to some of these other SOEs and actually stopped by some of them, you've considered nothing for employee expansion. So what, there's nothing here
It's, okay, go ahead.
to tell us what is your anticipation on these same benchmarks that you've given on this form for additional employees or staff that may be needed?
Right.
How much meeting space related to training in the future, if those are really the numbers, versus how many people you have to train as poll workers today?
Right. During in the needs assessment, if I understand correctly, that's in the needs assessment that's been provided to the board. So if you reference back to that, it talks about the employees. I have a goal. We should be at about 25. Right now, what's affecting us is that I've always said this in our budget discussions, that a staffing table has to be able to absorb three things: attrition, resignation, and dismissals. I came into office, it was 16 people working there. That is, if you look at the survey that I did, we are completely behind the 8 ball on staffing. We need to be well at about 25 employees. But because we are out of office space, I cannot hire any more employees. Right now, I've got some employees that are sharing an office space. So I agree, yes, we do need to increase our staff, but I am crippled at that being able to do that because I don't have the space that we need to do that. I have to put it in the budget. One thing I noticed is that there was no succession planning. I have 3 individuals. I have 172 years of elections experience in that building. 3 of my most senior individuals that most of you all know. Charlene Pike, her husband works here. She's leaving next year. I have another individual that could leave at any time. Upon coming in office, there was no succession plan. I asked the question, what happens if Charlene gets hit by a bus? No one was able to answer that question for me. Luckily, we were able to be fiscally responsible, that we were able to acquire someone that is now on a succession plan to take over her position when she leaves. I've had to put that in place, but I don't want to be crippled by my space needs in order to address my staffing needs, because I want to bring people in and get them prepared for election work, because it is very grueling. And one of the things is obviously was the pay that we all now have adjusted, which is we've seen, and I'm very happy to report that we've seen an increase in our applications now that we've been able to increase pay. So if we can, now that we brought the pay up, it'd be nice if we can get to that space so we can bring people in so we can get them hired.
The only thing I'd like to add is, Mr. Anderson, I do agree that you need more space. I do also agree it needs to be at 5 points. I also agree, as I've said many times, that we need to be acting and being proactive. I could see that, you need more space for your staff. I can definitely see you need more space for storage, and sometimes people don't understand the big demand that there is for storage of records, as well as there is for prep, as well as there is for either classroom space or meeting space, however you want to decide it. But I don't see that there is, I don't see that your need is out of line. That's my position.
I'm sorry, say that last part.
I said I don't see that your need is out of line because of those different categories.
And to your point, Chairman, we actually were visited by a company here in Oviedo called CPPI. They came by and took a tour of our facility because they are now designing the facility for Lake County. Lake County, who has 270,000 voters, less than us, they're building a 50,000 square foot building, much larger than what we're proposing, as a matter of fact. Now, their projection on registered voters is a lot higher because they got a bigger land mass, and they're more than likely going to have a higher population than us in the given years. So we have taken that into account. Now, these individuals came to us, they reached out to us because they know we're in the process of a building project, because there is no industry standard for elections. I checked that first because, let's be real, why would I recreate the wheel? If there was already something out there that you could refer to, then I would have just used that and given that to the architect and said, here, take this and work from that. But there wasn't one. I took my own time, my own gas, my own money, and I went and toured these SOE buildings. And the advice that was given to me by one of my fellow SOEs was do a needs assessment, a space study, which is where that came from. So I understand that in many different industries there is a standard. Unfortunately, the hyper-focus of elections, it doesn't exist. And I'm going to give you my best reason as to why that doesn't. Most of the SOE buildings that I have toured are all been existing buildings that were built for other reasons. Collier County's in a building that was a building built for an electrician business that went under. Polk County's in a building out by their racetrack that was not built for them. Lake County's in a bank that they did tenant improvements on. Orange County, they're in an old packing house that is connected to a building that they did build for themselves. So when Leon County, they commandeered an old Ashley furniture store. Volusia County, they took over a Winn-Dixie.
Mr. Anderson, I think you make your point.
So I'm just saying that as you look at, as you ask for an industry standard, and as you can see, I put a lot of time and effort into this.
Okay.
Commissioner Constantine.
Unless somebody else, okay. Okay, let's cut through all this. We all agree that you need a bigger building. Nobody's complaining about that, okay? We all agree we want to do it as quickly as we humanly possibly can, okay? So we all agree with that. Anybody disagree with that? Okay. So now, Mr. Anderson, today, what are you asking us to do? To just approve what you've asked for, or what are you asking us to do right now?
I'm asking you to let's get this project moving forward. Let's get a motion on the floor to move this project forward.
And I am prepared to do that.
Right.
Okay.
And we made concessions. You know, Commissioner Zimbauer brought up the 25-foot ceiling. I said last week we can come down to 18 feet ceilings. That's fine. We were talking about a 52,000 square foot
Mr. Anderson,
building. We came
please,
to 45,000.
hold on, please, for a second. I don't want to micromanage this building, okay? That's not what I'm trying to do, so I don't care about the 25 feet. That's something that I want to leave to the experts, all right? So what's the holdup? Are you saying that our folks are not working with your folks to get the building the way we can put it in? Okay, then we want to make sure that we do that, okay, today.
The holdup is the questions after questions out of every meeting.
Well,
May I?
Yes, go right ahead.
I have stayed very quiet, and I have listened, and a lot. And I've made several trips to your office, and I've toured with you, and I've talked with you over the phone, and we've had multiple meetings. I've talked with your council. Love your team. You have an incredible team.
Yes, ma'am.
They're
great.
Very dedicated, very dedicated.
They make you look good. I want to get this done because your team needs space to do their job. And our citizens need the people working for them in every constitutional office and in this county. They need to be equipped with the tools that they need to serve our citizens. That's what this is about. This is not about you. This is not about personalities.
Nope.
But Mr. Anderson, I think I need to go on record and make it very clear that you are not being treated any differently than any other constitutional officer in this county. We have a responsibility as the elected county commissioners to do a specific job, and that does involve asking questions. So if there have been delays because we have asked questions, that is our job. I just had a meeting with the clerk yesterday. I asked a lot of questions. I may have more questions. And you know what he said? If you have any more questions, I want to make sure we get you what you need so that you feel good about the decisions that you're making. That's working together. We want to work with you. We want to get you the tools that you need. But the finger pointing and the blame game and somehow the implication that you are being treated differently really is just not accurate. So I needed to get that on the record.
Well,
And
again, I disagree with that. I will tell you right now that I can tell you for a fact that I haven't been because I know it and I can prove it. But be that as it may, it's not about me. It's not about the board.
Mr. Anderson,
It's about getting this project
I
moving
believe the
forward.
commission has the floor. She's not interrupted you.
Well, I've
Please,
been
let's not-
interrupted a couple times, but I will.
So let's not interrupt her at the moment. Commissioner?
so I think you have consensus. I think you have had consensus from the very beginning. I think that the questions that you are seemingly offended by are our job, and for that, I won't apologize. And if there's other things to go before a motion, be happy to cede the floor to one of my colleagues.
I believe Commissioner Zimba would like to speak, and then Commissioner Constantine wanted to make a motion, I believe.
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion, but if Mr. Constantine would like to do so, have at it, Commissioner.
No, go ahead. You've got the floor.
I would move approval for the 45,000 square foot proposal that was brought to us at the last rendition that we reviewed, with the caveat to work with county staff to ensure that the placement and sizing is capable of future expansion. If that number becomes 52,000 or 55,000 at some later date, if there's a way to design that envelope of that building for future expansion at a cost-effective way, that's what I would prefer to do.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Constantine.
I feel uncomfortable in putting a specific size on the building right now. I'm sorry, it could be, there's 18,000, it could be 36,000. It doesn't necessarily, I don't want to put 45 and above. I'm willing to go forward, I want to go forward, but I want our staff working with the superintendent to get the right size and then move forward. I think 45, you're allowing, yes, you're allowing people to, okay, oh, we got to build to 45 at least. I think we need to be very careful, especially things are changing. People are, double using double using space and everything. I'm just stopped there. I think we should not have a specific size in there as the minimum.
Commissioner Herr?
I wholeheartedly agree. I think the taxpayers deserve a second look at this. I think by all admissions, the concept of collaboration has at least broken down on multiple occasions in both directions. And that, to me, would indicate that there's opportunity for a better outcome if we actually have a collaboration between our staff, your staff. It's not single-handedly in your hands because your staff has multiple years of experience. We need more than one person involved, and we need to have more than one person involved, Mr. Anderson, because we went down that faulty path before on our side of this equation as well. And that would include Schinkel Schultz, who I think is sitting in the back of the room and shaking their head every now and then, if I may have miscategorized you. You're just a wildly interested outside party. And we need presentations from those that do this for a living in order for us to validate that we're doing the best possible thing in terms of spending taxpayer money.
Thank you. Is the motioner want to make clarification, or we stand on the motion?
All I've got to say is, how long are we going to wait? It's 2 years. Well, what I'm hearing is we want more presentations. We want experts to come talk to us. They've had an expert study performed. Our staff has engaged at 5 points, at least gave this commissioner a rendition of the placement at 5 points. I just don't understand why we want to continue to push this down the road. I mean, I understand if you don't, excuse me 1 second.
One commissioner at a time.
I understand if you're going to tell me that we don't trust the study that's been done, we don't trust the presentation that staff's given to us, then show me where that trust is broken down, and I'm okay having more presentations. I've taken the time to go out to some of these SOEs. That's my impression, that we're going to need space. I don't think that the space study is too far out of whack. And if Schinkel Schultz wants to come down and talk to us about that, I'm happy to have that now as well.
Commissioner Zimba, I was just asking if your motion stands as is, or...
It does.
Okay, just wanted clarification. Lockhart, Commissioner Lockhart, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I believe that there's question about the need for 45,000 square feet. I think that's what you're hearing from I think I'm counting to 3. So there would be some rationale for having staff continue to look at the actual plan and at the actual square footage. It's not so much about trust as it is due diligence. And I would point back to the courthouse. You know, we were asked for 3 courtrooms, and we decided that we were going to give them 1 additional courtroom. So this board has a very recent history of making decisions that are paring down requests from other entities. So I like the idea of allowing our team to work with Schenkel Schultz and the supervisors team to bring back, giving the authority to move forward. There will be a building, that it will be at 5 points, but the actual scope and size of that building is to be determined based on more staff discussion.
And I don't disagree from what's been stated. I would only remind that the courthouse, at least in my mind, is a different animal. When we awarded a contract for a space needs assessment for $600,000, and by the time we were done, it was $1.4 million to get those assessments that we were supposed to base our information on in our decision-making process, which we did, and then 2 years later, we're adding additional things. So the study does what in that circumstance? We paid all that money for a study, and yet we got the assessment of needs, and then we added more. So that study either was not correct to start with, or interaction was not correct, or things significantly changed in that short period of time. I don't have a problem if we want to beat this to death and have another consultant come in and evaluate and do all this, tell us what's really needed. I will support it if there's some kind of timeline or deadline on that.
I like the motion as it stands. I like to call the question. Is there any discussion? Any additional questions on the motion at hand?
I was going to make an amendment to that motion.
You have a right to make a friendly or unfriendly amendment.
Thank you.
Friendly or unfriendly.
And I have a question before I do that. County Manager, do we have a problem in working together with the Supervisor of Elections to put together a building as quickly as possible? We just don't want to have the size, mandated, dictated, if you will, micromanaged at this level, but put together a plan of action with the Supervisor of Elections, and do it immediately without additional studies and everything. We've got the studies, we've got everything, but we can look at and make sure that we've got that. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay, then I make a motion I make an amendment that we just take out the $45,000 and just call it a building, and the rest of the motion stands.
Accepted.
Okay, the motioner and the seconder agrees. Before we call the question, do we have any written requests to speak? Shani?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience besides the Supervisor of Election staff, because they have spoken? Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak on this issue? Anyone in the audience before I close public input? I'm closing public input. So can we repeat the motion just for clarification purposes?
Motion is to move forward approval of the building at 5 points with coordination with our staff, not a square footage in mind, that will come back to us, I guess, at some point for us to understand what that square footage is going to be.
Is that the way the seconder agrees?
Yes, but I just want to clarify that that's not slowing anything down. We're
Just asking if you agree with the motion or
I can
not.
agree with the
Not asking for
motion.
another presentation.
Well, I want to make sure that everybody knows that we're not trying to slow it down, like we've been accused of.
Seeing no other discussion, we'll call the motion. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Aye. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
You voted,
I voted against it. I like the idea of the square footage. I'm just telling you how I felt.
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
but I do have a question.
Go right ahead.
I do have a question, because one of the other takeaways, I really am sorry everyone got excited to leave. One of the other takeaways that we did ask for was a short-term and a long-term plan, with the notion that none of this is slowing any of this down, but the reality and the timeline that was presented the last time was that this wasn't going to be ready for the next election. So I don't necessarily know that we need to see a short-term plan, but if we're involved in sourcing additional space for a short-term plan, we probably need to start figuring that out, too.
Well, I can tell you that we have been working with county staff to find some adequate space, but that, we already took care of that way in advance. We knew that we were going to need training space and things of that nature, so the school board, they stepped up and they gave us training space that we would be able to use. We took care of that in the first part of last year because we knew that would be an issue. In 2020, we used the sheriff's office, so those needs have already been met. So we've looked at space with county staff, and that space was too big and it was too expensive for part-time use. It wasn't a good application of tax dollars, so we declined to go that route. So there was a building, but then that building came off the market. So we are, there's been a change in staff. So if we can get that back going again, we're available. We're all ears.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we're good in the short run. We think we're okay for the next round of elections, and that staff and your team are working together to make this happen.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Applegate, before we take a recess, are there any issues you need to bring forward?
I have two matters. The first one, Mr. Chairman, is I need a motion to authorize myself as interim county manager the authority to sign documents on behalf of the county for federal grants.
So moved.
Second. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Next.
Thank you. Signing my life away. Finally, on the county manager search, we've agreed to the dates of June 8, 9, and 10 for interviews, and we're going to advertise for a special meeting on June 10th for the public interviews and public comment. Unless something changes, our executive search person, Bob Slavin, will be here at the next meeting to announce the 4, 5, or 6 finalists for you to do your due diligence on prior to the interviews. And you can either vote on June 10th at the special meeting or June 14th at your regular meeting if you so move to select one.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Ms. Chipok, anything?
Yes, 2 quick briefing updates. First, on the Deer Run CUP, staff is working with Carrillo, the consultant, on the CUP decommissioning, and they have meetings scheduled with the state in the next week or so, and we'll bring you more information on that as it develops, but that is in process. You had asked about that previously. And the other item is the Springs rulemaking. We've been in contact with our consultant, Ed Delapart. He is on top of the issue. He is working for several jurisdictions, and utility companies. Our interests are aligned with them. And at this point, he is monitoring the rulemaking process. The major concern is the definition that they have of the term harm to the springs, because right now, the way the rule is written, it is a no change standard, which is very strict and very unusual. So that is still in process. He will be reporting back to us periodically, and if there are any decision-making points later, we will bring that back for you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? We'll stand at recess till 1:30.
Yay.